Welcome, grizzled old carpenters, to Geek Salad's Retro Movie Reviews from Geek Salad Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And it's April. What does April mean for Geek Salad? It means that we are going back to Disney. We are talking about a series of Disney films throughout the month. This month, we are essentially, I don't know if we're going to title it Walt's Follies, because Walt was dead for some of these that we're going to talk about this month. But primarily, we're going to ask the question, what was Disney thinking? And did the gamble pay off?
Yeah.
That's pretty much our mission statement for this month. And we start with Walt Disney proper and the documentary that just premiered back in January on Disney Plus, Disneyland Handcrafted.
Yeah. Documenting Walt's big folly.
Walt's Folly, which was Disneyland.
Yeah.
So did you watch this prior to us figuring out this is what we're going to do, or was this kind of the impetus to watch it?
Oh, no. I watched it back in January, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just watched it again because...
I kind of been putting it off. I don't know why, because I do like Leslie Iwerks' Disney park documentaries. I find it incredible that Leslie Iwerks still works for Disney, considering what happened to Ub.
Well, I mean, in fairness, her very first documentary that Disney did produce was all about Ub Iwerks.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So they've been trying to rectify that. So credit's due.
Do the incredible Imagineering documentary series, which was one of the first things to premiere on Disney Plus 6+ years ago. I can't believe Disney Plus has been around for 6+ years.
Wow. Yeah.
Imagineering
Story was 2019. Wow.
Yeah. And it doesn't resemble the old Disney Plus either, because they comboed Hulu and ESPN with it now. So it's just like the entire thing looks messed up. But back to Disneyland Handcrafted. Realistically speaking, I mean, Mike and Mike and I, we've been talking about this for we're going on a decade practically with the Disney months, and Mike and I are huge Disney fans. We know a lot. Yep, there we go. I did not wear a Disney shirt today. I'm
wearing a Disney hat and a shirt, so
yeah. Basement's cold. I got just a regular white undershirt on underneath my my hoodie here. But Mike and I are huge Disney fans. We both love the parks. But Mike and I are also big into the history of Disney, the studio, the parks, and all that fun stuff. So realistically, with this is not a narrative documentary.
No,
it's not really telling a story. It's just documenting the 2 years essentially that it took to build the park from
1 year.
1 year, that's right. Sorry. Tearing up the ground to opening day.
Yeah. And honestly, the reason that, the fact that it is so unique as far as documentaries go is kind of why I love it so much, because it is, other than some just footage from the Disneyland shows at the beginning, and then some footage from the opening day footage at the end, it is virtually the entire thing is just footage that was filmed while the park was actually under construction.
Yeah.
With just some audio clips thrown in here and there.
Right. And a lot of it was done with time stop cameras. So it went by fast. What do they say? It's 15 seconds. It takes a shot every 15 seconds or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so it goes by really, really fast. I think for me, the biggest intriguing part of this was watching them build things.
Yeah.
And how not only just as the title says, handcrafted. This really, a lot of this was handcrafted. They had they had wood artisans on there. They also had a lot of old codgers on there, Chesterfield, unfiltered Chesterfield hanging out there,
Oh yeah.
hanging out of their mouth while they're just like,
I mean, heck, they had that one guy. They said like, they didn't really have any plans. They like, they'd make the plans for like the week, and then they'd, for the most part, follow it, and then they'd make plans on Sunday for the next week.
yeah. It kind of just interesting how the whole thing came about. But I think that the joy in watching this is watching it being built, and watching it being built from the technology that they had available in the 1950s. And it opened in 55, so it's like, early to mid 1950s technology.
Yeah, and like some of the shots of like the bulldozers just trying to go up the barn and then kind of flopping over them. Like, yeah, I bet you they were very, very lax with the OSHA's
Oh yeah,
rulings around there.
OSHA. What's OSHA? That sounds funny to me. This is a weird one to really discuss because it's not so much we can talk about this journey that Walt took. I mean, the journey that we knew he took, and they mention this kind of briefly, but they do mention the fact that Walt was not good with the bankers. That was totally a Roy thing. Roy was the one who had to keep going back to the banks and asking for more money. And this is not the only time this has happened. This happens throughout.
Yeah. Going all the way back to
realistically that Walt Disney was solvent before he died.
Yeah, I mean going all the way back to like when they were first making their first animated shorts. It was Walt that was like, let's do this and this and this, and Roy was like, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Yeah.
But I mean that was how they worked, and honestly, whenever you've got like the Disney studio, Disney parks, Disney studios, whatever, when you've got one person that can really do the ideas and one person that does the money, and they can actually work together, that's when you get the magic.
I feel the same way. I feel like that's really kind of how that worked. Now, what will be interesting is if they do a handcrafted for Disney World. The acquisition of the land and the building of the park was 1,000% different than this. This was not, again, Walt's folly. No one expected this park was going to do well, primarily because they were worried that, once people went once, they would never want to come back.
Yeah.
So having that where they were, continually needing to, press about people. Well, you live in California, come back, drive, brave the highway.
Another thing I really love about this documentary is that, if you watch like the clips from like the Disneyland show and all that, Walt was like, oh yeah, it's like, we're going to do all of this. It's going to be fantastic. And then you like watch this documentary and you hear that bit of like, Walt was like showing up. It's like, do you know how much money we spent on this? This is how much money we spent on this. And he was just like, it's just saying, it's like, I don't know if we're gonna. We've already spent like half the budget, and there is nothing here. Nothing anyone that would spend 15 cents on, let alone. And so you actually you actually acknowledge that. Yeah, Walt was petrified.
Yeah,
he was worried up the wazoo that he was just gonna he was gonna end up with nothing.
Yeah, the public face is one thing because obviously he's going to sell the park. And that's the thing is that he was their best promoter. He was their hype man back in the day. He owned the company, but he was also like their greatest hype man.
Yeah.
Which is funny when you go back and you think about like when Eisner tried to do the same thing when he was in charge, and it was just like so awkward.
Yeah.
And that's why like Bob Chapek never was like, I'm just
Yeah, and I mean that's why I liked it when Bob Iger was around, because he was an effective hype man, but he never seemed like he was out of reach.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of issues with Bob Iger, but he definitely tried to make it more inclusive, I think, is probably
Yeah.
the best word for that. Yeah, and I meant Iger when I said Chapek. Chapek was a businessman who had no idea how to run the entertainment industry. Definitely, he was a bean counter.
Yeah.
And with
Like,
yeah,
well, I mean, like, with, like, say, Eisner, yeah, he could come off as foolish, but when he had what was his name? The president of the Disney company that died in the helicopter crash.
Tom Wells.
Was it Tom Wells?
It was Wells. I know Wells. Frank Wells.
Frank Wells, yeah. When he had Frank Wells to kind of balance him out, you got that magic of, like, Roy and Walt. Maybe not to the same level, but you had that. And then as soon as Frank Wells died,
right, exactly, and it happened right after The Lion King, and we are going to be talking about that era this month. I think getting back to this era here, the 1950s. Again, I think most of my interest in this was just watching the things that I am well familiar with being built, and the things that were built, and ready for day one, even though half the day one stuff wasn't even ready on day one.
I mean, heck, they were even showing like that the truck wheel spinning is like, yeah, no, that's not sand, that's asphalt.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah, exactly. Of all the day one attractions, the one thing that they could have probably built earlier was the pavement.
Yeah, literally paving it laying it that day, and given that it was one of the hottest days of the entire summer that day, there was no way it was going to set in time.
Didn't have a chance to set.
No.
I mean, the whole thing of also, and we hear these stories, and these are kind of the age-old stories about, well, you can right now for opening day, you can either have water fountains or bathrooms. What do you want?
Yeah,
we have to have bathrooms.
Yeah,
we need working toilets. Them running out of concessions. I think that it is the validation of it being broadcast nationally, and then having more people than they were ever planning, to have come on opening day.
Yeah, I mean that honestly, the Disneyland show, and Walt doing his little spiel and like showing the little shorts and cartoons and movies and all that, and then showing the footage of Disneyland under construction, that really kind of saved Disneyland itself, because if there hadn't been that constant hype build towards the opening day, people would have never come. And that opening fiasco that they call it, I think, Black Sunday.
Yeah,
that could have been the death knell.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing too. And they don't really go into a lot of detail about this in the documentary, about how the Wonderful World of Disney was essentially created, as a promotional piece for Disney, for Disneyland, and Disney. Walt actually that was essentially what they were paying for.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly, that was kind of like the genius of Walt Disney, is that he got, not only did he get free kind of advertising for Disneyland, but it wasn't free. They were actually paying him to advertise his own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I think he took a lower cut of what they would normally pay him, because he got to advertise the park. And you were getting, you weren't even getting movies at that point. Every once in a while, maybe you get one of their live action movies, but for the most part, most of their stuff were shorts and compilations.
Like I know the Davy Crockett shorts. They were shown. In fact, we even got a couple of shots of Fess Parker in the documentary there.
Yeah, it is interesting too, seeing like all of the celebrities of the time showing up. You had Art Linkletter as kind of the master of ceremonies. You've got young pre-governor of California, Ronald Reagan.
And meeting up with the actual governor of California at the time. Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was interesting watching like their first outing of the train, their first outing of the Mark Twain
Mm.
Steamboat. Those are, I mean, those are really cool, and it's got to be edifying to have put in all that time building that,
Mm.
and then seeing it kind of come to fruition.
And yeah, when they were talking about like the Casey Jr. trains, like yeah, it kind of started going off the rails because they didn't have the safety rails. Like, so okay, well, we will not open this with a park, but we've got to show it around on for the TV show.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it'll be fixed by the time the next group of people show up.
Yeah,
and it's interesting too. I think the big gamble with this, in terms of, you think about the parks now, and you think about how they are, they're international attractions. In the U.S., both parks are huge international attractions, but to have a park in California and kind of expecting that it's just going to be residents of California and maybe a couple of the surrounding states. Whereas, because, I mean, God knows, if I were in the 1950s, my dad wouldn't spring for us to get plane tickets to fly out to Anaheim. Where the hell is Anaheim?
Yeah. As I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry. But that's, I mean, again, this is a real tough one to kind of dissect because there's no narrative to this. It essentially is just watching a bunch of old grizzled men and that one young guy who stood out like a sore thumb. There's like the one guy who definitely looked like he was probably in his early 20s. Probably had a pack of Luckies like rolled up in his sleeve as the youngsters were wont to do back then.
Yeah.
But everybody else were just like these old codgers and their giant glasses and their,
Yeah, I mean, seeing them like feed the wires through for the Jungle Cruise through that like
that
kind
was
of metal, and just using that to just keep it so they don't get all tangled up, and they just fed it right through a metal sieve almost.
Yep, exactly. Considering also that, like, I have seen people splice fiber optic cable, so watching that, 70 years later, was 7 years earlier rather, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that overall, I thought it was very interesting documentary. I think in terms of your time investment, hour 16 minutes is nothing.
No, and it is. I mean, it is a footage from one of the greatest kind of art entertainment builds almost ever.
Yeah, and considering also given the time how fast it went up.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, that is a very quick time to put an entire park up.
Yeah.
It's not just one structure. That was interesting. The audio testimonials that they were given were obviously taken from decades ago.
Oh yeah. I think out of everybody that you hear during the documentary, I think only Bob Gurr is still alive.
He might. I don't even know if he's still alive anymore.
No. I know he is still alive.
Bob Gurr is still alive. Okay.
In fact, he was at Disneyland. I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah. He's still kicking. He's in his 90s, but he's still kicking.
No, good for him.
Yeah.
Well, Walt didn't manage to succeed to kill all of his collaborators. So.
Yeah. I as someone who goes to Disneyland fairly regularly, I would say at least once a year. It is really interesting just seeing, especially in the latter half, when you're actually seeing Disneyland fully built. And I'm like, okay, that road right there, that's actually right in the middle of the plaza between the two parks now. And that burn, I know that place is just so cool to just see places as they were and knowing what they look like now.
Yeah, there's a definitive history. I mean, it's been over 30 years since I've been in Disneyland. There is definitely a history within the park that you can feel. It's like going to someplace in Europe and standing in a cathedral that is over 2,000 years old, and you can feel that history. It's the same thing with Disneyland, obviously, it's not thousands of years, it's only 70 years, but feeling that there's a lot of the original structure still up there, which is impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Seeing them like lay down all the pavement and, pave it over. I'm like, that might still, I mean, sure they've had to replace a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are some parts of it that are still original to when they built it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And seeing them blow the cement onto a lot of the structures was really interesting too. I mean, that's just fascinating to watch.
Yeah. If you're definitely a fan of architecture, this is a great documentary for you to see.
It's a fun documentary to watch. I mean, they do not go into great detail about any of it. But just watching them do it is pretty interesting, considering, again, the hand craftsmanship of a lot of the woodwork on the ships, on a lot of the ride vehicles. It is impressive.
Yeah, when they showed like the footage of them testing out the Peter Pan ride, you had that woman just sitting there, smiling around, like, yeah, I bet you how much she was smiling. I wonder if she was smiling for the camera or it's because she was actually having fun, because that was an untested ride system there, and she could very well have fallen like a dozen feet.
About 10 feet or so. It is. Yeah.
So it wouldn't have killed her, but it would have hurt her like hell.
Well, you're also falling. If you fall, you're falling in a ride mechanism.
Yeah.
So that's either going to buffer the blow or make it worse. I couldn't tell you. Yeah, a little bit of column A, a little column B. But, I mean, that's really all I have to say about it. It's a fun documentary, again.
Same here.
It's worth your time. Definitely if you're a fan of the parks, if you're a fan of the history of the parks, especially because, again, I love watching how the sausage is made with anything having to do with the parks. So I found that aspect of this intriguing.
Mm-hmm. You and Adam really should come out to Disneyland sometime.
You know what? Part of it is just, time, money, kid going to college, that kind of fun stuff. So, so that was Disneyland Handcrafted. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we are going to be talking about a lot of films. We're going to be talking about a couple of films of, what was Disney thinking, and did that gamble pay off, either financially or artistically? I'm not going to tell anybody what any of our picks are for those movies. And they are going to be a little disjointed, maybe a little out of chronological order. We do tend to go chronologically, but I don't think that this is the month for that. I think we're just going to kind of just weigh our options and take it from there. Yeah.
We'll just figure out our lineup and then kind of work it as we want to.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to know, have you seen the Disneyland Handcrafted documentary? If not, give it a try. Then let us know. Leave a comment below of what you thought of it. Are you a fan of Disneyland? I mean, do you kind of feel that history when you go into the main park? Again, leave that polite comment below. Don't forget, this is YouTube, so subscribe, thumbs up. You know the deal. With that, also, Mike and I host a little podcast called Geek Salad. You can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. We should be recording a new episode within the next week or so. We're still kind of on the fence as to where we're going with that one, whether or not we're sticking with Disney or something that I feel might be a little more timely. Not teasing anything yet till we get full consensus.
Oh, come on. You're totally teasing it. Come on.
I'm totally teasing it, but I'm not saying a damn word. So you can also follow us on the socials. We are on Facebook at Geek Salad Podcast and on Blueski at Geek Salad Radio. And until next time, I'm Andy.
I'm Mike.
Go forth, be nerdful, and have a magical day.
Yeah.